FSU collective bargaining.
I'll get those.
I think that's a great idea.
Well, hey everybody.
Hi.
Welcome. You know, I was a little under, well, I was under the weather. The last time we met, I'm sorry I missed it. I'm Mike Matador from those who have met me before. And I assist the university in collective bargaining. And I'm glad to be here and I'm glad you're here.
Awesome. We're glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you know where the term under the weather came from?
Go ahead.
Come back.
No, that's a learning opportunity.
When they were, like in the British Navy,
The British.
in the British Navy, if they had, the deck,
Yeah,
and then they had sleeping quarters and eating quarters at the bottom.
yeah.
And in those ships, they had like a subfloor that was very narrow because you didn't move around in there, you just went there and got into hammocks. And to isolate people who were sick, whenever you were sick, they would put you in that room and you would lie in a hammock. And so you were under the weather. Because ordinarily you'd be on the deck and you'd be in the weather.
Oh, okay.
So they would say, if you got sick, go under the weather.
Wow. Have any of you checked that already with Google? Trust but verify, or question everything. But, yeah, all right. Good. I'm glad you're not under the deck anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
Before we get started, I did just want to let you all know, we do have a Zoom call that's running, and we do also record with that camera over there.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
It's only pointed towards us.
So it just recorded what we just said?
Well, now I'm gonna get something from a note from the British Navy.
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Where did he get that?
Into the brig.
All right, well, thank you for sending your articles ahead of time. We thought the best way to start off was to let you sort of walk us through them and talk about your own relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like for us to walk through all four of them, or one of them? Okay. Sounds good. And does anyone need a copy, or does everyone have one?
We printed it out.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Sounds good. All right, so for Article 1, the red text at the bottom, specifically starting at line 26, we are wanting to ensure, specifically with our bargaining unit member list, that we are able to have an accurate account of how many members that we have in our bargaining unit and make sure that it's more accessible than kind of what we're working with right now.
Let me have that, let me get it.
Okay, so you're referring to the bargaining list.
Yes,
Okay.
and then also access to documents. We just wanted to make sure that we have that language in our collective bargaining agreement. We've never had any issue with requesting access to any documents, but we just wanted to ensure that the language was there.
Okay, I just have a quick thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on line 29,
Mhm,
that's a bargaining unit member list
mhm,
within 10 days of request, right?
mhm,
And then on 31,
mhm.
that would be the same bargaining unit member list, but within 30 days from the start of the semester.
Yes, yeah. So, but with the bargaining unit list specifically, we wanted to allow more time because we know that that's a lot of data to pull.
Okay, so the 1.4 is a different list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions?
Nice.
Hold on, the contact phone number?
Like if the student has like an office number, like if the
All right,
graduate
you're not
assistant.
asking for their mobile number?
No, not their mobile phone, no. Yeah. Really just any sort of way to contact them, and if they do have an office phone that they use frequently. But, you know, an email address would absolutely suffice. Are we okay to move on to Article 5?
We need to grab some there. Are
Jay.
you taking more?
If
Okay.
possible, yeah.
We can grab like a stack of
Yeah.
chairs.
And what's the difference between an email address and contact email address?
One is like a personal email address, and then one is like a university email address, but we would prefer, like either would be fine. Yeah.
I don't know what we have.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure we,
Everybody's Gmail address.
that's okay, we just wanted to make sure we had our bases covered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I know.
Move on to Article 5, there's quite a bit to look at with this one. So, our first edit is line 19, and then ends at line 23, and then the second one is line 31, ends at line 37. And so, we wanted to ensure that there was language in the contract about graduate students being able to pursue the topics of research that they're interested in without any sort of pitfalls or, you know, sort of roadblocks. And we also just wanted to secure the rights that graduate students would have to practice the same, like, academic freedoms as, like, faculty, for example. And as well as, like I said, engaging in scholarly and creative activity that is, you know, not something that is kind of censored in any way. And then down towards line 31, we have the responsibility of the administration includes, but is not limited to, commitments to acts of free speech. And then also any research that is conducted by graduate assistants at Florida State University. And we also just really want to ensure that we not only like remind ourselves, but those, you know, that would be looking at our collective bargaining agreement that, you know, universities are site for discourse and multiple points of view, and we want to maintain that integrity as we move forward.
I'm confused by, so if we're looking at 31 through 32 there, if we take out the stuff that's in the comments, the responsibility of the administration includes any and all topics of research conducted by graduate assistants. What does that mean? How can the topics of research conducted by graduate assistants be the responsibility of the administration?
Well, namely because the administration, you know, is providing all of our resources that allow us to conduct research and different things like that.
What about grants from outside?
Yeah, no, absolutely, but you know, I don't think grants from outside would necessarily affect free speech within research.
So are you saying it's up to the administration to choose the topics of research being conducted by graduate assistants? I still don't understand. How is it the responsibility of the administration, the topics of research conducted by graduate assistants?
The responsibility of the administration lies in the supporting graduate assistants to conduct the research that they think is pertinent and viable.
That's not really what this says here, right?
Okay. I can specify that.
Well, we'll respond, but
Yes.
I just don't know that this articulates what you're saying that it is meant to do.
Okay, well, thank you for pointing that out.
Can I ask, Has there been any like concerns that you all have had where you feel like your academic freedom's been restricted or?
Yes, absolutely. I know that we have had, university funding denied to certain, students in certain departments, namely, the example that I know of is sociology, because there are certain words within the titles of their research. Personally, all of my research is in queer theory and gender studies, and I have to move around a little bit to be able to continue doing what I'm doing. Yeah. And also, with that, it is like a little early too, as things are still moving and things are evolving and changing, and we wanted to make sure that as things do evolve and change, that we do have this language in our collective bargaining agreement moving forward.
Yeah, I guess one of my concerns would be that to be a graduate assistant, you have to be supervised by a faculty member.
Absolutely.
Be supervising your research, so I'm not sure how I'm not sure that it would always be the same level of a faculty member of academic freedom when they're supervising your research and assisting you all with it, right? So there's some collaboration there that needs to go on.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
I don't.
Okay.
So, for Article 6, our edits begin on page 2 of line 43. So we do understand that class sizes are going to increase, so that, we understand that is something that has to happen. But we wanted to implement language about when cap sizes do increase, that there's a proper channel of communication between administration. Are we okay to move on to 18? Are there any questions?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
Awesome. So, Article 18, our revisions start at line 22, 23, and this is ensuring that graduate assistants have access to some sort of secure space that is locked and cannot be lost or stolen, and making sure that it is on the department to provide employees with this. Especially in terms of sensitive materials with students and maybe private meetings that need to happen with students. But there was that. And then on page 3, starting line 78, we have language about proper care being provided for the spaces that student or graduate assistants are assigned for their work.
On line 80 is the safe areas for sensitive material, harkening back to the language on the first page.
Yes.
Okay. They have a caucus.
Yes.
Yes, they
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we will talk, yes, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah.
But no, it's good. I like it.
I was gonna say,
Nobody's gonna steal it.
probably.
Does anybody drive a manual
Yeah.
car?
Yes, sir.
None of the,
Yeah. See? I do have it. All right, we have we've been able to turn around a couple of these.
Okay.
So we want to get them to you. And Rebecca, take it away, please.
So, we generally are okay with providing any kind of public records documents within 10 days. We did wanna leave a little bit of room for grace, should something happen. Sometimes we get really large requests that take a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
So, we're still committed to the effort of providing those, with the 10-day goal in mind. I wanted to explain why we struck the bargaining unit member list. Actually, I'm gonna let you explain it, and then I
Okay.
will make a reference to where, that's already addressed in the contract.
Sure. Through the years, the GAU has asked for this list literally dozens of times, and I've always given the same explanation why we cannot provide it, so I will give that to you today. Under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, you may have heard of it as FERPA, student records, educational records are exempt, cannot be provided, are confidential, unless certain exceptions apply. One of those being if it's directory information, which is designated by the university, and we put out notices, it's in the graduate handbook, it's on a gazillion websites, saying what the university considers directory information. Whether a graduate student has an appointment as a graduate assistant is not directory information. Therefore, we cannot disclose it unless we have written consent from the student, a court order, or a lawfully issued subpoena, or one of the other exemptions under FERPA. So that's why we cannot provide the bargaining unit list for you guys the way you have asked for it with the name and all that other information.
However, because we've talked about this over the years, in our previous negotiations, we did agree to language that you can find on 2.2A1. And it reads, upon request, the university shall provide the GAU with an electronic list of active graduate assistant appointments to include department, unit, job code, title, hours per week, rate of pay, funding begin, start and dates. And the list will not include identifying information for individual graduate assistants, such as their name, employee ID number, or contact information. So we do provide you all a list, we just have to make some tweaks to it. And how it's been used in the past is to assist you with kind of knowing how many, what the stipends are like, that kind of thing. So that's currently what we're doing.
What was the article again?
It's 2.2 A1.
Do you have any questions for us about?
I'm curious as to what is considered directory information.
It's spelled out in one of the university regulations. It's things like name, and a recent addition is your FSU email address, your home address, I think your year may be in there, your major. If you're an athlete, there's additional things like your height and weight. Can't imagine having my weight publicly announced everywhere, but the weight for athletes. I can give you the, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I can give you the site to the FSU regulation that specifically lists those. If you would like to see that, that would be helpful.
Yes, that'd be very helpful.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Awesome, thank you.
And so the other thing we've kind of done over the years to help with this too is we understand sometimes you'll want to send out communications. So that's why you guys are sending the communications to me, and I'm sending it just to the graduate assistants.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'd have to send it to all graduate students, and that doesn't seem very effective. So that's why we did it that way too.
Okay.
So does the list provided under 2.2, that includes names as well, right? 'Cause it's not.
No, it doesn't include names, because nothing personally identifiable.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Do you have any questions?
I just have a question for Lisa, just a reminder about, and I'm Lee, the current president, so we corresponded a few
Okay.
times.
Yeah.
What was the okay that made it possible for us to receive the list that we did end up getting for the purposes of like our perk renewal and everything? The list that we were able to receive that did have like few people who opted out from the list, like 20 some odd people, I think. I know that you did give us that list despite the FERPA issue, so what made that, I guess?
Because the university was ordered by PERC as part of that process.
Okay.
And we also had to send out 3,000 FERPA notices to all those students, because
Okay.
that's required by FERPA, to give them the opportunity to opt out if they didn't want their information.
Okay.
So that was an exception because of the order by PERC.
Okay.
That was what gave us the ability to do that. So yeah, you do have that PERC list
Mhm.
of 3,000 plus individuals that was valid as of fall 2024.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And while I've got it, the university regulation is FSU-2.023, paren 2, paren B as in boy. So 2.023, and there is a website, if you type in FSU adopted regulations, it'll bring you up a list of different chapters. This would be under chapter 2, and then there's like a table of contents, and you can look that up. And so that is gonna have a listing of what is the university's designated directory information.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
What would we do without technology?
I'd have to remember that citation.
It's,
Lost your off guard today.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess we can go to Rebecca, wherever you want to go next.
I think we'll go in order, go to 6. We're not gonna have a response on 5 today. So we considered your language. I think in general, we agree that if your class is gonna be larger than you thought it was gonna be when you originally received your assignment, that you should be notified of that. But just in all, the way that the semester rolls out, sometimes there are some changes that it's not possible to get 4 weeks or 2 weeks, and it might be, a week at the beginning. So we wanted to add that in, that the department shall make a reasonable effort to communicate any changes to assignments as soon as practicable, listing changes to class sizes as an example. And this would cover any other change as well. And I stuck it under E just because that's what's talking about instructor of record and determining assignments, so it seemed to make sense to fit there.
Yeah, absolutely. What would classify as a reasonable effort? In line 43. Like just do anything that they can, or is there some sort of, is there a limit? Yeah.
I mean, I think we would use a reasonable person standard. I don't know if you have any comments on that, but that's typically when we use that language. That's the standard that we would use. Yeah. Not doing anything, knowing about it for 2 weeks would not be reasonable effort, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, saying something, maybe not reasonable, but,
Did anyone else have any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
I'm just wondering about what is the nature of your hesitation around defining reasonable here? Because reasonable is incredibly subjective.
We use reasonable all throughout this contract and other contracts, and we use a reasonable person standard, so we don't find it subjective.
I guess that's an example of you thinking something's reasonable and somebody else thinking it's not reasonable though.
Well, yeah, that could be the case, and when we use reasonable, if one believed that a reasonable effort is not being made, then they could file a grievance. And it's possible that, depending upon the impact of what's being complained about, it could go to an arbitrator. It would be a third party neutral. And the question put to that person would be, was a reasonable effort made or not? So there is sort of a person who determines whether reason. So it's not our subjective reasonableness, it's actually what an arbitrator would do.
I think those were all questions.
So, as we're reading all through 18.1 and A, we feel like your proposed language was covered in pretty significant detail. Even in the event that something was lost or stolen, that doesn't take away the responsibility of the department to provide this space. So we didn't see the need for that additional language. And then on the third page, we are proposing this alternative language. Campus buildings shall be regularly inspected to ensure, radon things, and so it's all, they're working with our environmental health and safety department to make sure that it's done really mainly by what's required by the law, and then above and beyond that to ensure that it's all safe.
What about for instances of trespassing?
No, I don't know. That's a good question. What are you asking about specifically for trespassing?
Like how often there is someone that is maybe patrolling a building that is regularly trespassed, or if that is something that is even happening.
I can try to find some of that statistics out for you next time, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Can you give more information? I'm lost as to what you're talking about. Are you talking about like unhoused folks wandering in, or?
Just people that are not students and are not faculty or staff, people that are not part of the FSU community. There have been multiple instances of people trespassing on campus property and harassing graduate assistants.
That would be more of an FSU PD issue, I believe, more than under Article 18. I mean, not to say we couldn't put something, but, and if there are specific instances, I would love to hear those, and I would be happy to pass those on to the police department, the folks that can address that, because that's not acceptable, and we would want to remedy that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have email communications that I can get to you if you would like.
That would be great. Or if you want to send them, I don't know if you have my email, if you want to send them to
Yeah, you can send
Rebecca,
me and I'll definitely.
we'll make sure they get to the appropriate parties so those can be addressed.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's
Yeah, I mean, don't hesitate. I'll let the shoot PD.
Does anyone else have any questions?
So in lines 79 through 82, you mentioned that these are things that FSU is already doing to ensure the safety of graduate assistants. So is are these procedures mentioned anywhere else in the contract?
You mean the detailed procedures of all the different types of inspections that are done?
Yeah, because you mentioned that this is something that FSU is already doing. So if it's something that FSU is already doing, is it mentioned somewhere else in the contract?
We don't have a list in the contract of all the specific inspections that are done. They're outlined in our policies under environmental health and safety.
Okay. Well, I guess my question was, if it's something that FSU already does, then what's the issue with keeping it in the contract? If it's something that FSU is going to continue doing anyway, why not leave it in?
Well, that was language that you're proposing, so what I'm talking about is the language that we proposed. The regular inspections. So we're not striking that from existing language.
I think Lane was asking about the language we proposed that you did strike through, which was more detailed as to what procedures would take place and where, if that is something that the university already does. I think they want to know why we won't put it in the contract.
Well, let me clarify then, what I'm saying the university already does is the regular inspections to ensure safety. Yeah, that's what I'm speaking to.
Is there like an itemized, any itemized language that kind of breaks down what is included in the regular inspection that we could look at?
I could definitely ask for it, see if I can release some.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, that's all right, that'd be great.
We fall under a bunch of different policies. Fire safety, I mean, all the things.
Absolutely.
Or maybe you just provide me with it, would probably be the best.
Yeah. I think we would like to discuss.
Okay.
Just that my son, who's actually a graduate student, is fanatic about Spider-Man, and so he named his first child Ben Riley.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool. And he's amazing.
Okay, so we are going to take Carol's proposals with us, and we will come back next time with some responses. But for now, we wanted to see if you all had any questions about the MOU that we presented last session.
I don't have any questions about it. I'm not in a position today to respond to it.
Okay.
We also have some articles we plan to propose, but not necessarily today.
Okay.
Some of them are surrounding possible policy changes, and so that hasn't happened yet, so we're not 100% sure, but
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that. But I appreciate today's session. I feel like it was productive. Appreciate you guys coming prepared. Were you available on the 11th?
I am, I think.
Okay. We were thinking about the 11th. He's going to verify really quick as our next session, if that would work. It's a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, like the same time.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm not available.
You're not? Okay, so we will get with you within 5 days to schedule our next session.
Well, thank you all.
Sure.
And we'll
Thank
see
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good weekend.
Yes. You as well.
One of them is